Hey, good evening. This is Nicolina, and you're listening to Women, Wit and Wine. Tonight, we're going to talk about the title of this thing is called The Cut, and it's Surviving the Holiday Blues. And really, my vision for this is to talk about how the holidays is very difficult for us, and you know, it's a high suicide rate for people. I have some on my nose. Sure. So, I mean, this is a little bit of a serious show, and I'm hoping to still bring a little bit of humor into it. But right now, I'm here with my amazing producer Toby Camilli.
Hello.
And of course, the amazing Robin Reynolds, who I listened to some of her poetry. She's an amazing. I don't know, would I call you a slam poet? Kind of thing.
Yeah, performance artist.
Mm-hmm. She's here to join us tonight too.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome. Can you move this? There you go. This subject touches home to me a lot. I kind of like to say, having suffered from depression all my life, that I understand that not everyone understands the idea of suicide. It's a permanent solution to a temporary moment, and it has a ripple effect on loved ones left behind. And it's hard to understand. It's hard to understand how someone can be in so much pain that it seems easier to end things than continuing to deal with or live through the pain. And for me, I'm in a much different place than what I was 5 years ago. 5 years ago was my last and final suicide attempt. But sometimes that emotional pain is far more painful, and it's not something that's easily seen. Yet there's these voices in your head that tell you that the world might be a better place without you. And the reality of it, it's not true. The world is what you make it, and there's so many tortured souls out there. And just because you don't understand or can't see it doesn't mean it's not real. Because to someone like me, those demons are very real. Some nights as I go to bed, I wish for a peaceful sleep, praying that those thoughts won't wake me to talk to me. And there's some nights that I wish that I wouldn't wake up, because the thoughts are overwhelming, and knowing tomorrow that when I wake I'm victorious and I'm stronger because I'm alive, and I've overcome my demons of yesterday. I would like to say that probably the first time I tried to commit suicide I was 13.
Wow.
It's been an ongoing fight and battle for me through most of my life. Because I wasn't quite yet diagnosed as having PTSD or OCD, which definitely makes the idea of suicide even easier, because it's the best way I could describe it is when I'm in that moment, every fiber of my body hurts. Every fiber hurts so much that the only way to break that cycle was to do something so drastic. So, I know, Robin, you said something that you had a family member who dealt with that. And
I'm just realizing in the last 30 seconds that you inviting me here and having this conversation is such a precious gift to me. I am actually the loved one that's left, right? My sister committed suicide. She was my best friend, and I have never understood that. Her name was Nikki, and talking to you now, I can see is already helping me have some information that I've never been able to understand about suicide. So I'm kind of bringing a different perspective to it, and that I've never tried to commit suicide, and it's hard for me to understand sometimes, but I have seen that ripple effect that you're talking about.
It's like a pebble. It drops into the water and it just goes. And it's infinite.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I can say that I am glad you are here. Absolutely.
Me too.
So
Me
glad.
too.
And I agree with you. I know that had my sister been able to get through that moment, she would be glad to be here. Her kids would be glad she was here. And so,
and that's really hard. After I came out of the hospital, it took my daughter a couple of days to tell me how angry she was with me. And
I'm still angry. Yeah.
And how dare I do that to her, pretty much. And, thinking that she would be better off without me isn't the truth. I mean, and that's really, it's not the truth. And I see a lot of people lately, because it is the holidays. The holidays is hard when you're estranged from your family, your friends, you're single, you're going through a divorce, whatever the reason is that you feel like you're alone. What we don't realize is we're not really alone.
No, we're not.
There's so many things out there for people to reach out to, community or community events, friends. Mm-hmm. I mean, we think that our friends abandon us, but
they never do.
Well,
some do, but
I've had friends that have
the ones that matter
backed away because they didn't understand what I was going through, but they never left. But it got overwhelming. Somebody once described me as I'm like a star and I burn everybody out. I burn my friends out because I'm so intense.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a kind of a scary thought is to think that's how people could view you. I mean, this is a good show for me because it is the holidays, and I have I have 2 children, and my oldest lives with my mother, and we're estranged. And I'm not in a relationship, so yeah. I mean, this touches a little bit home, but I also know that I have friends. And my daughter, I don't get to see her much because she's working all the time at the post office. But I get to, but I know she's there. Mm-hmm. So
I'm more alone right now in my life than I've ever been. And so this is probably good timing for me as well. Single, my kids are grown. And in a lot of ways it's fabulous, but I'm getting a lot more perspective on what it's like to be alone, how lonely that can be, and even how difficult it might be to reach out. We think we have a lot of resources and a lot of knowledge about suicide and depression, but I think when you're stuck in the middle of it, it's probably really hard to reach out.
It is. It is. I mean, I can probably say that I come home at night and I'm like, oh, I really should call somebody. I should go out.
Yeah.
But then you get to this place and you're like, I'm okay here. I'm in my bubble.
Right.
I'm not happy in my bubble, but I'm in my bubble. So yeah, I mean, so for you, were there warning signs for your sister?
Yes and no. And this was, she committed suicide in August of 2003, so it's been a while. She never overtly talked about suicide, threatened suicide that I can remember. But there were signs that she had maybe some mental imbalances or some problems with depression, just odd behavior that I think had I been present now, I might have known a little bit more that they were sort of warning signs of anxiety and depression and things like that, but I did not recognize those at the time.
I think that if you don't suffer through it, it's harder to understand for people. So I got Toby listening to us in the other room. She's checking to see, I'm sure she's checking to see the volume of everything. How is everything?
It's fine.
We can hear it all?
Yes, it's good. It was a problem with Renee.
Oh, was she being awfully quiet?
She said she couldn't hear anything, and I said, no, I am seeing it peak here, which means it's going.
And then you listen to it.
Yeah, well, before I went, and had a panic attack and stopped the broadcast.
But, we've had some guests, and they've just been a little bit too quiet, and people are like, I can't hear that person. I can't hear that person.
No one's ever accused me of being too quiet.
Yeah, I'm not. So I think we always worry about the the audio sometimes.
Yeah. Well, we're getting better.
We're getting better.
It gets better every week, which is actually we're getting into a kind of a
groove.
And look, we even clean. You should have seen this before you came here.
You guys can't see this, but it looks fabulous.
Well, thanks.
Very.
We got rid of the giant spider.
A spider of cords.
Of cords.
Thank you for that.
So I do want to talk about this wine tonight. I did get something a little bit sardonic. I don't have a wine sponsor at this time.
Oh, what happened to the wine sponsor?
We'll talk about that later.
Oh, we still love you.
We still love you, wine sponsor. Primal Roots is because we're talking about this primal
I like that name.
need for
companionship and friendship.
And
love. It comes down to love. I like to talk about love.
Me too.
Well, I think that you can be in a room full of people and still feel lonely.
This is very true.
I suffer from crowd anxiety, so
yeah, me too.
That is a terrible thing for me because I could still be in a room full of people and feel lonely and anxious.
Ooh.
And noise, and so there's just I have tics. I have a lot of tics that kind of go with all this OCD and PTSD, clinical depression. I think I probably can say the first time that I was ever in a therapist chair, I was 5.
Wow.
I didn't know how to cope with the fact my parents had divorced. And my father just really wasn't in the picture. And not because he didn't want to be, but because my mom wouldn't allow him. And so I had this abandonment issues.
Yeah, fear.
So, so off and on through my life, I've sat in a therapist chair and, and a lot of my shows kind of do reflect on my last therapist, who was a slow French guy. My books are bullshit.
Your box.
My books are bullshit. But it was really, I was at a point where I had actually, coming out of the hospital, been diagnosed with PTSD, OCD, and clinical depression. And I went to a specialized therapist who dealt with OCD and PTSD. And I was able to finally visualize what pain looked like for me, because he says, I want you to talk about your pain. And I said, he says, draw me a picture of it. And I'm like, I can't draw you a picture of it. And then the next thing I know, I have this big black hole on a piece of paper. And for me, here and this is where it comes in, is when I get into this point of depression and the ongoing bad tape in my head, I dig this hole, and it gets deeper and deeper and deeper, and then eventually I can't find my way out of it. So the only way to escape is to do something drastic. Was to overdose, cut. I've been a cutter, and I've overdosed several times. The last time was September of 2011. So, and I'm in a better place. It's in some ways it kind of, the therapist was after all of that, but it definitely helped me to deal with talking about it and saying, this is where I'm at right now. So, when I wrote this show, or I really didn't write the show. When I decided the name of the show, I wanted to call it A Good Day to Die, Surviving the Holidays. Of course, my producer thought it was a little morbid, and it's okay. I mean, but I guess the thing is it's something that I wrote about.
Yeah.
In a poem.
Are you going? You wanted to read the poem?
I'm going to read the poem, and it's called A Good Day to Die, and it's just because you don't talk about it doesn't mean you're okay. Sometimes not talking about it is all you can do to quiet the nagging, taunting voices you call to the others that call you to the other side. Some days it just sits there on your chest, hoping you'll give in and let go, telling you that tomorrow it's okay to die. And you go to sleep planning it out in your head that yes, tomorrow. And you agree, yes, tomorrow is a good day to die. Yet in the morning comes and you wake and you start over again, knowing that you've made it through the night, one more night, and today is a new day. And as you push through the day, drowning out the small voice in the back of your mind, starting all over again as you lay your head on the pillow, and once again you think to yourself, yes, tomorrow is a good day to die. And the meaning of that poem for me is it's about, it's an ongoing battle. It exists every day. You're driving through traffic and you think, God, life would be so much easier if I just blew through this light. Ended it all. Those don't stop. The thoughts don't stop. Those are always there. But every day that you wake up, it's a victory that you've succeeded. You've succeeded to drown the demons in your head.
Yeah.
That pull. I mean, and it's a constant pulling. It's a constant nagging, especially when you feel overwhelmed and stressed and. And
then the holidays is just added to that because you've got family and it's, there's expectation to have money to buy presents for people, or maybe families visiting, or maybe you don't get to see your family because of some reason,
It saves on my Christmas presents.
Yeah, that's one of the blessings. I mean,
nice way to look on the positive side.
Well, it is. It's very true.
Being the black sheep saves on my Christmas presents.
Yeah, it saves you a lot of money.
Yeah.
But
when I'm an empty nester this year. My daughter moved out, and you were kind of saying you're an empty nester, and that in itself is its own set of depression, because you realize, there's nobody to do laundry for.
It's a challenge.
Yeah. There's nobody to cook for. What do I do with myself? And then, of course, you get the call of, where are you? I'm out.
Yeah.
Well, why aren't you home? You don't live there anymore? So what does it matter? So, still there's that. They're still there. It's just a different form. Because I've had that a couple of times with my daughter going, why aren't you home?
Yeah.
Well, what are you, my mother?
So you're a very creative person,
I am.
Nicolina.
I'm an artist.
And I know for me, I think my creative endeavors are what saves me. That's probably why I've never gotten to that point of being actually suicidal.
Yeah.
How do you feel about your creative endeavors? Do you think that helps you?
I think in some ways it helps me. In some ways it talks about, the pain intensity that I go through. I mean, I have another poem called Cut. It's called The Cut, and it talks about where you ask yourself, where do I cut? And it's basically bleeding, that concept of when you're so overwhelmed that you cut just to know you're alive.
Wow.
So there's this pain that it's a release. It's almost a release when you're doing that. I mean, so, for some people who are cutters, it's a reminder that you're still alive because you're so overwhelmed with the depression that you're numb.
Yeah. Depression to me is like a loss of hope when you have nothing to hope for or look forward to. Renee just said, stopping the feelings of ending it all during a drive or during that pull means having something to go home to, having something that's meaningful. And that's why I've had depression as well. And I've also had a suicide attempt. And how I manage it and how I've managed to become kind of who you know me now today, Miss Pollyanna. You're always giving me a hard time about it.
You're so damn happy.
I know. Is that every day, I find things that bring me joy every day. I write a list every day, again, with the lists. And that I found has been because every day, even if something bad, terrible happens, I can go back to that list and say, these are my 5 things today, or my 10 things. Or I just look around, and what I found is that now the depression has pretty much, I can't even imagine. I do remember how bad things were back in 98 when I did get to that point where I looked around and I couldn't find even joy in the sunshine. I was living in Hawaii
Wow.
with the most beautiful beaches. This happened in Hawaii, of all places. So now, for me, it's a different kind of thing. It's that finding those things, no matter how minuscule they are. I'll tell you, sometimes I have a nice comfy pillow in my bed to sleep on. And that, and a nice bed or whatever it is. So I don't know. That's my take on it. And, the depression is very real. It doesn't ever really go away. But, when you become aware of it and you accept it and kind of love that part of who you are, that's another thing. I wanted to banish it. I wanted to banish all of my bad feelings, all of my negative feelings, all of the depression. I just wanted to get rid of it. I just wanted to, if I could just, cut it out of my arm like you would a cancer, I would have done it. But it doesn't work like that. It's part of who we are. And it's part of being an emotional creature, being an emotional person, is having those feelings of sadness and happiness. At this point, I wouldn't want to change that. I wouldn't want to forget that experience, because as a writer now, when I need to write something really sad, I can go back to that moment in my life and write an incredibly sad scene or an incredibly sad story, right?
Yes,
and
right.
it's amazing. So
I agree with you about hope. I think hope is that shining, beautiful thing that gets us through, and the loss of that can just plunge you into
it can.
Despair.
And you have something so devastatingly that mine was the loss of my marriage.
Yeah.
I did something, and I caused my marriage to spin out of control. And I felt at the time that I couldn't stop it.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. I did something that I was ashamed of, that I was just disgusted with myself. I didn't.
That's even worse when you have done something to
Yeah.
cause it.
I've
been there.
And then everybody around me was just reaffirming that.
Yeah.
The few people that knew were just reaffirming. And instead of, I only saw the one path out of the forest. And it turns out I was wrong, because I'm still here. Woo, 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 woo.
We're glad you're still here.
Yes.
I'm glad you're still here.
Even though I'm like, woo, woo, all the time.
So I have a poem called "Don't Lose Hope,"
Okay.
and I think I loved yours, Nicolina.
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's a good poem.
So I'm wondering if you guys want to hear
I
that.
would love to hear
Yes.
it.
I did not write it directly about suicide. I actually wrote it in response to Victoria Martin's her death. Do you remember? She's the 10-year-old that was killed by her mother,
Yeah.
her mother's boyfriend. So this is called "Don't Lose Hope," but I think it's still applicable to everything that we're talking about. Hey, listen, don't lose hope. Just know that this glorious city of ours holds so much more inside of her alleys and adobes than monsters and meth heads. I know it's hard. I know what it feels like to wake up in the morning and search for just one reason to hold onto hope. I know that sometimes the bad far outweighs the good, and I know that my not good enough words are nothing like jackhammers. They are whispers, wisps, tiny drops of water disappearing into an endless and angry sea, but I won't stop, and don't you stop. Don't you stop. I can't speak to you directly of Victoria Martins because I didn't know her. What I can speak to you of is the way my daughter's blonde hair used to fall across her cheek when she was 10 years old. The way her smile was pure sunshine, and sometimes just the sight of that would almost break my heart with joy. I can tell you that evil walks this world on 2 feet, wearing sneakers or flip-flops, that the human heart is a labyrinth, a dark and frightening maze. Albuquerque, we grieve as a city, our tears seeping into the cracked and dry desert, into the dust which surrounds her so sad grave. These tears also water Ocotillo and Pinon. They rise like hot air balloons. Did you notice that on the day of her death you could smell fall in the air? As if the earth had put its foot down and declared, "You shall not have one more moment of sweet summer in the face of this travesty." All of this, the prayers, the sobbing, the broken fucking hearts, come together, hold her tight and wrap her in feathers and the kind of bubbles that little kids play with in the bathtub, combs her hair softly before bed and reads her a story about a castle and a dragon. A fairy tale of warmth and love and of human kindness. And I don't know what kind of mother doesn't love her daughter like that. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I could have just written this entire poem to say I don't know, and it would have been just as accurate, because I don't understand how we came to this place. What I do know is that I have spent days crying, that my heart is shattered like yours, that we cannot change what happened. We can't take away the blood, the pain, the fear. What we can do is send forth our versions of sunshine and glitter into the world. We can send them out day after day after day, even if we don't know where they have gone, and even if they do not come back to us. I can assure you love does make a difference. Love. I want to speak to you of love, but what of this wild rage in my chest, and what about justice, and how can we see if we don't open our eyes? But how can we open our eyes without being tempted to gouge them out? We need to understand this. Victoria was not alone. There are people in this world this very minute in situations of grave danger, and they cannot defend themselves. Their hands are too small and their hearts are too sweet. So what I would ask you today is that you would hold onto hope, that you would heal one thing, even if it is just yourself. Then do that again tomorrow and the next and the next and the next, because sometimes that is all that we can do.
Ooh, that's good.
And so it's about daughters, and we have daughters, and also I think just that idea of holding on to hope just for one freaking second, just long enough to get you through, is really applicable to what we're talking about. In fact, the world looks shitty, but overall it's beautiful, and we want to be here.
You know, there's a lot of, you know, I mean, it's very funny because somebody was talking to me about my comedy, and they said something about it on current affairs, and I said the problem is I don't watch the news.
I don't watch it either.
Yeah, it'd be really hard to write comedy on some. I don't either.
But I don't watch the news for the very reason that
it's too much.
We are so overwhelmed
Excuse me.
with negativity. I mean, have you ever seen the movie 28 Days Later?
No.
It's you remember the Omega Man with Charlton Heston?
Yes.
Well, it's very reminiscent of it, and in the beginning of the movie is you see these monkeys strapped to chairs, and they're watching nothing but violence.
Wow.
And so they develop this virus of rage, and so the explanation of it is caused by rage. And to me, I think the news is very much like that. We are so saturated with. I love horror movies. I do. They're not real. They're not real. I know that they're not real, but the news is real. That's scary to me.
It's the vibration. It lowers the vibration, especially. I mean, you guys remember? I know how old you are, but I don't know how old you are, Robin. But
47.
We're all in the same generation, basically. But back when we were kids, back in the 70s and the early 80s, the news was on 8 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock, and 11. It was on for maybe a half an hour. Remember that? And then it was television shows, and you would see the news, and it was half an hour, and they would only do the big headlines, and that was it. Well, now we have 24-hour news stations.
Constant.
And we have the internet, 24-hour news stations. You want doom and gloom? Man, you turn one of those on. Well, they cannot report anything happy happening. Right. It wasn't like, I would love this. This is one of my pipe dreams, okay? We turn on the news, a news channel. They come on and they say, today in the world, nothing happened. The sun was shining. People walked down the street.
Blew.
Yes, there were roses in bloom. It rained in Kentucky, but nobody got hurt.
Yes,
I know it sounds just completely crazy, but
you know, it doesn't sound crazy because here's my concept of, you know, these kids who go out and do mass shootings, or kill their parents and stuff like that. It is so overwhelmed. It overwhelms the media that you have. And honestly, here's the thing: I don't doubt that kind of thing happened when we were kids. The difference is we didn't talk about it,
and it's looped, and it's sensationalized.
But here's the thing: it's on everywhere, and all of a sudden you have this kid that thinks, "Wow, I'm ignored."
Yes.
Maybe if I do this, they'll notice me.
They could feel alive for just a moment,
and they get and they get their 15 minutes of fame, So again, if we stop talking about it in the sense of sensationalizing it,
yeah,
we'd have less.
Yes. And I also, I'm a Pollyanna person too. I'm accused of it all the time.
Yeah, Yay! Welcome to the club. Sunshine everywhere.
I personally believe we can create our own reality in a way.
Oh,
I
yeah.
do this. Every day I dance to one song. Like a crazy ass in my house. A happy, great song.
You should come over. We could do dance party.
I want to. I totally want to.
My roommate, my boyfriend and I.
Okay. Let's do it.
We dance around now it's the kitchen.
Hey, you know what? You got an invite. I've never gotten an invite.
You can invite it.
Yeah, you kiss my ass.
Do you want to come over?
I've been invited to your house once.
Do you want to come over and play darts? We got a dartboard for Christmas.
Yeah, I heard about that. Whatever.
No, you know where we put it?
Am I still invited, or is she?
Do you want to come over too?
I'm just wondering.
You have to understand, my house is half under renovation, and I get really weird about it. But I'm starting to open up the doors.
We have game night.
We need to have one. We found some games that we want to play.
What are they?
I forgot them. I'll ask Renee.
Well, we'll think about it while we're dancing.
Think about it while we're dancing.
Okay, so Renee did say you have to stop thinking about what you lost and focus on what you can gain tomorrow, or what you have right now.
Yeah,
I like that. Oh, she says she's dancing now. Yeah, she's at my house.
Hey, that's great.
Dancing in my house. Ta-da. Okay.
So I think it's a great way to start out the day, and it seems kind of simple, and I don't know, maybe dumb, but it's not.
I'd like one of those radio systems that are in your house that just come on at a certain time to play happy music in the morning, so you can, and then just before you go to bed, you have the nice classical music to help you relax.
Yeah, a soundtrack for your life.
Yeah, I would like a soundtrack for my life.
Seems reasonable.
Right now it sounds like Helter Skelter, but I'm just kidding. That's just a joke.
Is it Helter Skelter?
You can have that dramatic music, when someone's coming down the alley at you.
Right.
I don't know what you would have when you met someone handsome and fantastic.
There's your good script is, the moments in your life where that's overtoned by the music that just all of a sudden starts playing out of nowhere. Oh. Like you're walking down the like she's talking about walking down the alley, and all of a sudden you hear the shark Jaws music, da-da, 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 da-da.
Oh, that would be funny. It could be about...
And it's your mailman.
Well, I think, do you guys have like
you make them? Shit, no more mail for you.
A soundtrack in your head where like you walk into a meeting and you start playing da, 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 in your head. Does this happen to anyone else?
Yes. Mine is usually if you can't handle the fact that I will break out into song every once in a while, you cannot be my friend.
I'm okay with that.
Because you'll say something and I'll think of a song. Mm-hmm. And I'll start singing the lyrics of the song. Haven't I done that with you yet?
Probably. I think it might have been.
She acts it out for her own mental stability.
No, I think it might have.
How's your singing?
I think it might have been the night of the alginate.
Oh,
fun with alginate at Nikki's house.
So, back on track here.
Yes,
we've gone far afield. I think.
Okay, so
no, it's okay, and that's the whole thing about this. I'll be honest with you. I know that my daughter, typical kids now, they're, I'm bipolar, I'm blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. It's like, dude, you guys don't even have any idea what it is to really suffer. And I wasn't very compassionate with my daughter when she would threaten suicide. Because I knew that it was an attention-seeking thing. And so I would always say the main thing, it said, well, if you're going to do it, at least do it right, so I don't have to take care of you. And so, there's this humorous part to it.
So how do you know that, though? So I've had issues like that come up with my kids, too. And I think because I had a suicide in my life, I'm very sensitive to it. And I felt like I couldn't find perspective.
You know what it is sometimes really people who think about suicide don't talk about it.
See,
that is what happened with my sister. Never mentioned it and just did it.
It just comes out of the blue.
That was me.
That was me. The day that I got up in the morning, I took my daughter to school. I was talking to my boss, and I was going through a bad breakup, and I just said, I just can't do this anymore. And I went home, and I overdosed, and had my boss knew when I said, I don't want to do this. And that's all I said to her. It wasn't like, I'm going to go kill myself. It's like, I just can't do this anymore. So she showed up at my house, and her and another friend of mine got me to the hospital, And
you're here.
And I'm here. I'm here.
So now that today is a better day, it's a new day.
Well, you know what? I would say one thing that I'm not very good about saying. I'm very depressed today, and I need some friends. But
That's
usually,
what you need to.
But usually, when I'm saying margaritas,
oh Jesus,
kind of thing, I just as an example.
When she says, "Invite me to your house," and
as an example, it's more of an example. It's because I'm having an off day and I could use the company.
I'm daft. You have to be direct.
I know you're terrible at answering your phone, but I mean, that for me is my way of reaching out without coming out and saying, God, today is a day that I just really would like to go home and just frickin' down every frickin' bottle of medication I have in my house and hope my heart explodes.
Wow. It's hard. I can't ask for help very easily, and so I know exactly what you mean. I'm always trying to be independent and taking care of myself.
Yeah.
I don't want to feel or appear weak.
Yes, I have the same thing.
Hey, you want to go get a drink? And then everybody's like, nah, busy. And you're like, oh.
So this is really good. This is good. So often when people are asking for help, they're not overtly saying, hey, help me, I'm suicidal.
But maybe they should be.
But here's the
thing.
Should be,
but
we don't want you to know that we need that help.
But why? I'm your friend. I'm your friend.
It's also a symbol of weakness, of that I'm in that place again.
But if you're asking for help, that's a sign of strength. To admit that you are weak is a sign of strength.
That's a perspective that there are two different perspectives, and I can see them both.
Somebody that does it on a daily basis. I mean, you've been there. You know what I've been. Were you asking for help? You weren't.
Not in 98, but I have learned since then to call somebody and say, look, I really need to talk to somebody. When I came home last year and I drove 11 hours in my car and I saw what my brother did to my house, I went from complete rage to complete depression. I got completely drunk. I called Renee. I called my sister. I said, look, I'm losing my...
What would you have done had they not answered?
What would I have done if I had not answered?
Let's think about this in real terms. What would you have done had they not answered?
Well, I definitely wasn't going to kill myself, but I did get very depressed. I kind of knew that this was going to happen because it was my house.
Right.
So what would I have done? But I would have waited for them to call me back. And figured that maybe they were busy.
What happens when they don't call you back? I mean, I just want you to think about this in terms of what happens when they don't call you back because life gets busy.
Call them back.
I think there's an important thing here, and I don't know. You can help me, Nicolina, and Toby too. When you're in that place, you are not necessarily in a place of emotional health. You and I, we can all three talk logically and say it logically makes sense to ask for help. But you're not in that logical, reasonable, emotional health place. And so what do people do when they're in that place?
We medicate in inappropriate ways, alcohol, self-flagellation, even if it's mentally.
Self-loathing, self-hatred, beating yourself up emotionally.
Opening up the fridge and binging.
Oh yeah, binge eating. Ooh, my favorite.
That's a thing. But for me, it's again, suicidal ideations have been in my head since the age of 13, and I would probably say up until I was 23, it was almost every 2 to 3 years that I was trying to commit suicide. I got a little bit better at 23, not 100% better. Because from there I went to cutting, and even so, I didn't even know that I was really depressed until I went through my final divorce, and a doctor said you might be depressed, and so I was on medication, and I came home and I was stabilized for a while, but I can honestly say that I haven't been on medication for the last year. Not because I don't need it, because I need it, but I'm in a better place mentally. But there's still those days that I reach for that bottle and think, well, maybe I should start taking this again. And then I have to remind myself, I'm just having a bad day.
Yeah. Perspective. You have to kind of
you know.
Focus in.
I really, in the last, probably the last 2 years, have gotten to a place where I don't feel like that's my out.
It's 2 paths.
That's such a victory right there.
2 paths.
I mean, I do say,
Don't
I
go
can
down
say
that one.
there's still that poking in the back of your head. And I mean, and that poem that I read earlier was one I wrote last year. And it was really about, I was in that moment that I could. I mean, and because, you know, it's like, oh man, you know, I'll post it's like stuff like, I kind of give up or something like that. It doesn't mean that I give up on life. It just means I give up on
I was
situations.
wondering about that post.
We'll talk about that later. It's not something to talk about on air.
Okay.
But again, that nagging, God, this world would be better off without you, is always there.
So I think there are several barriers to getting help. We just talked about asking for
it,
right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm coming from a perspective of trying to be the support that someone needs. And my sister won.
Yeah.
I was young. I didn't see it coming. I didn't do that adequately. I don't beat myself up over that. I just wish I had seen it a little more so that I could have helped. My daughter, and she wouldn't mind me saying this, I don't think, she has really struggled with suicidal ideations. She's getting help now, and she's a lot better, but we've talked about it now, and I was not a good support system for her because I didn't understand it. And sometimes it's easier to, if you don't understand it and you're frustrated and you're desperate and you don't know what to do, it's almost easier to close your mind to it or think that it's trivial or that
she's just
they'll get over that.
She's just being dramatic.
Yes,
Yeah.
And when people pick up on that, and then they think or know, perceive correctly that you're not the right person to go to because they're not going to get the help that they need.
Right.
And so I think as support people, we have to do better than that, right?
Yeah.
Being more open-minded.
Sure. And you do.
Well,
I mean, it's something that you do take seriously. I mean, I know that Amber's had friends, my daughter's had friends that have committed suicide or died from a drug overdose. And I mean, and that in itself is overwhelming.
Yeah.
Again, you know, I've never done drugs. I have no desire to do drugs. I'm pharmacologically medicated, and I'm okay with that. But
she's legal.
well, you know, really, the thing is when people would say, "What do you want to do?" No, because I'm weird enough as it is. I don't need help. I don't need help with the demons that are already in my head. You know, and it's not, you know, it's funny because somebody said something, I said the voices in my head, and somebody looked at me like, oh, you have those voices too? And it's like, not those kind of voices. I don't have the schizophrenic voices. I do have the voices, the self-loathing voices that say,
it's the inner dialogue.
you're worthless. It's an inner dialogue.
Like
it doesn't
tape.
shut up. It pokes you.
Yeah.
It pokes you in the middle of the night and goes, ooh, it's 2 a.m. Let's talk about this right now.
Yeah.
About everything that you fucked up in your life. Let's talk about why the fuck are you still here?
You need to tell that bitch, shut the fuck up. Shut up.
If it were only that easy.
I know.
It was only that easy
at
2:30 in the morning because you're all of a sudden wide awake and everything that pains you.
It spools. It's like a spooling.
It's that. Oh, it's
I know it.
It's the bad porn movie going in your head.
It's the loop.
And unfortunately, the fucking that you're getting in there is not enjoyable.
It's like,
maybe you can distract yourself with porn. I'm just throwing ideas.
I know. Well,
yeah.
Okay.
Trying to be helpful. You're welcome.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Thanks for that suggestion. I'll pull my vibrator out next time.
We know how that works out for you.
Renee did have a few things to say.
Hey, Renee.
And I can't figure out how to scroll up on the chat. See, I'm learning new things every day. About, she has also had depression and suicide. I hope she doesn't kick my ass when I get home for saying that. But
You're
at
not
one
saying
point,
last names.
That's right. Renee, no, she's on the chat. Okay, but that she actually was very blunt when she asked for help. And maybe sometimes I think that if you are struggling, you do need to be a little blunter with your friends. And if your current support system is not available, then you have nothing to lose by trying somebody new, asking somebody else new, somebody that you possibly you
That's
trust.
true.
You know,
Another thing that I
network.
remember.
It's like spider web.
Yeah, I remember that. So my son blatantly asked for help once, and it was a real, true, just earnest plea to help. It's sometimes difficult to get that help. I mean, beyond sitting there and being a comforting friend, but to actually say, let's get some real professional help.
Yeah.
You literally have to be, with a gun in your hand or pills in your belly already for them to help you. And then it's just sort of an emergency triage help. Long-term, real systemic help is difficult to get. And you can wait months to get in and then meet and they give you a medication or a dose and it's not right. It can take you years to get to a place that's of actual real help. And in the meantime, what are you doing?
What are you doing? You deal with it. I mean, you suffer through it. I can probably say that in 2011, I had actually in June hospitalized myself because my boss was going to be out of town, who was also my friend. My other friend was working. I had no support system, and it was going to be a long weekend. And I called my boss, and I said, well, I lose my job because I had a security clearance. And I said, will I lose my job if I hospitalize myself? And she said, well, what's going on? And I said, I'm just not okay. I mean, and it wasn't that I wanted to kill myself. I just knew that being alone for the weekend...
You just didn't want to be...
My daughter was in Oregon living with her dad at the time, and I couldn't be alone. I would have probably done something, but I did. I was sitting in my therapist's office, and I said, I think I need to go to the hospital. And I ended up being in there for 4 days, and, so they could talk about everything, talk about it 5 times a day as to why I was in there.
Yeah.
And, sometimes I think we perceive that you have to sort of be at the door of suicide to really need that urgent help. And in fact, it should be way earlier.
Yeah.
Best served way earlier, right?
Yeah. Identifying when you're backsliding or when you're starting to drop into that pit. Like, I know. I have triggers. I have things that will put me back in that place. And I know,
the healthcare system is overwrought, and they don't really honor that sometimes. You have to be right at the door, I think.
That's true.
That's very true.
I think it's a huge flaw in our system, and that's why a lot of people get stuck and don't get the help they need.
Yeah.
Do you remember the movie Ordinary People?
I do, where the son dies from suicide.
No, his friend commits suicide. Or does he die?
No, it's his brother.
No, Timothy Hutton was in it.
Yeah.
And Elizabeth McGovern. She committed suicide. And he was suicidal. And the whole point is it was that whole thing. I grew up with a parent that wanted to know what made me tick. And that's the problem. I can't tell you what makes me tick. Therapists can't tell you what makes me tick.
You can only tell you what makes you tick.
But, going through that, I remember that movie vividly, and that was a very strong message for our age of suicide. And it was very sad, but, and that's really kind of, a little bit of how I grew up in my high school years and, on into my 20s and figuring out how to make it work. How do I get through tomorrow to tomorrow? I just got to make it to one more day. One more day.
Yeah. I know for me, growing up, I saw a lot of kind of wacky behavior, dysfunctional behavior. We all do, right?
Sure.
And I think sometimes, unless someone gives you a message that you can really understand, it's hard to tell the difference between some certain behavior that's off normal and I really need help and I'm having a serious problem.
I think
people start giving stuff away.
Yeah.
That's a sign.
Yeah.
Hey, I got some stuff for you in the garage. When people start getting their affairs in order, making sure they have a life insurance policy for their children, for their house, so they don't lose their house, They're subtle.
My sister was in the middle of moving. I mean, there was not one single sign of that. And,
she was going through divorce, though, right?
No, she was not. In fact, she really looked in her life like she was really on the cusp of an upswing. And we were so excited about it to meet her the next morning to help her move. And so I still don't understand that, but I think she just got overwhelmed in the moment, right? You know.
You never really know. That's
No.
the thing. We never really know. My grandmother committed suicide in '89. We didn't know. She had struggled with depression and mental illness her whole life. And she had her little house, and she was quilting, and then she committed suicide. Nobody knew.
That's the point. You know, one thing I taught my daughter, because she was talking about people, I said, you know, people who really want to commit suicide don't really talk about it. And they don't. They just go home and they just do it.
That's true. And you know,
I mean, they might say something in a joking manner, but they don't come out and go, tonight I'm going to go home and kill myself.
Right. Well, and I think, you know, after that happened with my sister, for a long time, I honestly didn't believe she had committed suicide. I came up with all kinds of crazy things in my head, like, oh, you know, this was foul play somehow. And, you know, It wasn't. It just wasn't. She hung herself. And it was just so unfathomable to me that she would leave her kids, leave me. And I think the effects on the survivors are just... profound. You can
permanent
never get rid of
solution
that.
to a temporary moment in our life.
Yeah, my mom's never gotten over my grandma.
And that's one thing we have to remind ourselves, this is temporary.
And there is a lot of anger, and you feel betrayed, and you feel, you just feel abandoned. And I don't think anyone, if they fully understood that, would want to do that to their children or their loved ones.
Again, you know, I mean, and as somebody that's been there, when that pain is so overwhelming,
all you can think of is yourself.
Every fiber, for me, every fiber of my body hurts so much.
Wow. Yeah.
You know, my brain, my soul. It was like almost like I'm on fire.
And you were telling yourself lies that people would be better off without you.
Yeah,
and I think that's the fallacy that people get caught in.
The erroneous thinking.
That pain is so overwhelming that it's easier. It's just you just can't see out of. It's like this ocean, and you're drowning. You're drowning in this sea of pain, and like I don't know if you've ever been scuba diving.
No.
Well, if you go 100 feet, you really can't see this far in front of you, and that's pretty much almost a good description. If you've ever been on a 100-foot dive, it's just this blackness that surrounds you, and it's terrifying and painful
and hopeless, kind of.
And hopeless that you can't see anything beyond that. You can't see beyond your hand. So you know, it's that pain, and it's easy not to think about anybody else when you're in that much pain, emotionally, physically. You know, soul-wise, your soul hurts, your mind hurts, your body hurts, and it's just that one moment is all it takes.
So I wonder, Toby, you mentioned love earlier, and you can tell me, both of you, how, if this is even plausible, but I feel like loving each other as people as much as we can, and almost building up a reservoir of that.
Well, yeah,
might help in those dark times.
I think,
or does it disappear?
I think that, okay, I believe in this energy theory of things.
I do too.
Emotions as energy. Some vibrate at a high vibration, some at a low. The ones that make us feel really good are those really high ones. Like, I think that the term getting high might actually come from that. You know, being high on love, or being, you know.
I think we can bank that.
I think we can, but I do believe that it starts from within. And you've said this before, you can't love with an empty cup.
You're saying that the person has to have the capacity to receive and hold.
Well, they need to have the capacity to love themselves, which is really hard when you've done things that you're not proud of, and maybe you come from a place, or you come from a family that you're ashamed of, or that have been really mean to you, or I don't know, whatever is going on has happened to you that has hurt you and pained you, does not make you any less worthy of love. Doesn't make you any less worthy of belonging to a community. We're all on this planet together.
But here's the thing, like Pavlov's dog. we're conditioned to loathe ourselves.
We are.
And
but I don't agree with that.
No,
we need to learn to stop.
We are
automatic
socially conditioned.
we are conditioned.
But that
to-
doesn't mean we have to agree with it.
Well, no.
But it takes practice.
It takes practice. It's not
exactly.
something that happens overnight. It's not you don't get the aha moment. Oh my God, I opened up the Quran and oh my God, I'm saved.
No.
I've been
no,
baptized.
No.
I'm saved. My life is
No.
so much better.
Religion has done a lot to encourage the self-loathing, that whole original sin bullshit.
Well, I mean, but I'm just saying, it's not like you get to open a book and you have this aha moment. It really is. It takes practice. It is. It's a practice thing. It's every day you have to tell yourself that you're worth loving and you deserve it.
Yeah.
And then you have to notice, and by the way, ladies, thank you so much. This is actually my focus in my life right now.
The loving yourself?
Yes.
The worthiness?
Yeah.
You
Come on,
are
let's toast to
worthy.
that.
You are worthy.
Sometimes
You
I
are
struggle.
loved.
I feel like I'm an imposter in my own life, and then I catch myself responding to things. And there's this inner voice like, well, you're just lucky to be here, blah, blah, blah. And when you catch yourself doing that, you have to go, hold on, sweet cheeks. That's
I am
bullshit.
fucking lucky to be here.
I tell that bitch to shut
They're
up.
lucky I'm here.
I'm blessed I'm here.
But
Exactly.
still, you can't go around just thinking you're a doormat or whatever. We have absolute possibility, right?
Absolutely.
And we need to own that, I think, but it's so hard.
24 hours in the day, and guess what? We're all made of the same stuff, arranged just slightly differently.
Mm-hmm.
We are capable of anything and everything. And, the love thing, it starts from within. And when you realize that, that love, to be able to love yourself allows, but also to give it away. We talk about the gifts.
The gifts.
The 21 gifts.
29 gifts.
So maybe the trick is in your good times, when you're not in the depths of despair and scuba diving in 100 feet of water, you need to remind yourself that this is an important thing I need to practice now, not when I need it, because it's too late and it's too hard.
I do practice it. I have cards that work.
Yes, I
make
miss the cards.
I make my employees read them, because it raises the vibration of work, of self-worth. And, of course people read them. I don't like this card. It has nothing to do with me. It's like, yes, it does.
It came from
it does it.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm happy in my life. No, there's something in your life that you're not happy with right now because you drew the card.
I really believe that what you need, life will send you. Like I said, I was just talking about this on a ski trip this weekend with a friend of mine saying I need to learn how to own where I'm at in this world. I constantly feel like a white trash, uneducated chick from Ohio. And in fact, I'm a lot different than that now. And I need to own that.
You're not who you were yesterday.
No,
you're
I'm not.
who you are today.
Yeah, and I need to just live in that, right?
Yeah, that's it. It's the now. I'm not where I was a year ago. I am not who I was 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sober today. I'm just kidding.
You are not.
Yeah, as we
don't judge me. It's only our first bottle of wine. We hit 2.
Yeah,
we're doing a good job.
We're being responsible.
We're only drinking wine. We're not meth heads. Pray for us.
I know.
We have our teeth.
Oh,
they might be a little purple.
That's right.
I know. Pray for the meth heads. My brother's the meth head.
So was mine. Yes.
Was he?
Now.
Did he get
clean.
sober? He got clean?
That's a sad... he did get clean. That's a happy story. There's a sad follow-on that we're not going to talk about right now.
Okay. No, but I just want to hear the happy because my brother is still out and we haven't talked to him in a year.
He and his girlfriend clean now. Beautiful story.
Awesome.
Good.
Mm-hmm. It's happening.
I'll have to have you come back for that story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I will. I would love to.
We'll do a show on that.
We'll do a show on... Addiction.
We could also do a show on... failed relationships and how terrible people have been in them. Because I just want to say, Toby, I heard you say that you've screwed some stuff up.
Oh, I fucked up a lot of stuff.
I have messed them up.
Yeah. Oh,
you know what?
But you want to hear the beautiful thing about my life? I own it all.
Yeah.
And even though some of those stories, man, I just want to, I want to ostrich it and put my head in the sand and say, deny that I did it. But
I have denied it sometimes, and I finally got to a place where I owned it, and it's such a freedom, isn't it?
You own it, and you forgive thyself.
Yes, and then you move on and try not to be such a bitch,
We'll get to talk about that.
Yeah.
And actually, after after the inauguration of our new president, our focus is going to be a series of shows on relationships and dating.
Wow.
Yeah.
Up until February. So, because
I wanted to do like 3 months.
our show in
I'm just a producer.
in January 1st. Because the superstition that they say what you're doing on New Year's is what you'll be doing the rest of the year.
Okay,
we'll be doing.
I won't say it.
New Year's Day. Called resolutions. It's about why do we make resolutions? That's the next show, and then the show after that is called The Big C, and it's about cancer survivors.
So that's where we could talk about my brother's story.
I have Holly Bird is going to be on the show because she is a cancer survivor.
Oh, yeah, that's
I
great.
love her.
Do you
know her?
I do. Yes,
she's
I do.
lovely.
She's
I'm a
She's
cancer
so
survivor, so we'll be talking about that. And then I think my other show, what was the other one I was talking about? The Changing of the Guard.
The Changing of the Guard.
That's actually going to be an interesting show because I'm working on getting 2 people here as to the reasons why they voted and why they think it's going to be.
And they're
different.
opposite votes,
supporters?
right?
No,
Just one of each? Or?
I would like one of each, really.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because really, it's like I have a couple of people in mind, Don Sherry and John Summers, because I liked his post. It was really about he didn't really care about what people thought of why he voted for somebody, and he understood if he was going to lose friends. And then I know that Dawn, even though she said she's an independent, but she was very much a Bernie Sanders supporter. So I just think it'll be interesting to hear why. What do they think is going to change? What are they hoping is going to change? And that's kind of the focus of the show then, of the Changing of the Guard. And then the one after that, we need to start booking those.
Okay.
To relationships.
Relationships.
Well, it's been super fun. Thank you for having me.
I
appreciate it.
I'm glad you got to come on.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for the wine too. It's delicious.
I'm so glad you liked it. I thought it was good. I thought it was a good title for us. Now, I do want to say that again, it's the holidays, and we're lonely and depressed, and some of us are lonely and depressed. Make sure you reach out to family or friends. There's also the suicide hotline. Definitely, there's always people available to talk. That number is 1-800-273-8255. And just know there's people out there. There's people out there that love you and appreciate you. And again, it's only a temporary moment.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be a permanent solution.
Yes.
So, thanks for listening to Women, Wit and Wine. Thanks, Jen Robin.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Toby. And
I've been practicing my zombie voice.
We won't be back on Christmas because it is Christmas, and I hope that you guys celebrate with your families and enjoy it and think about what's amazing in your life, what's grateful. I mean, it's not about the gifts, it's definitely about that here we are again, and the holidays can bring us closer if we choose that's what we want. But we will be back on the 1st of January. So.
For resolutions.
Can't wait to listen to that.
This is Nicolina, and this is Women, Wit and Wine, and thanks, and have a great night.